Yates County and beyond, and welcome back to another episode of Invasive Species Friday. Through this short weekly podcast, we at the Yates CCE hope to bring you information about the invasive species you may see around this county. So let's get back in the water with this week's invasive, water chestnut. The water chestnut was introduced to the U.S. in the late 1800s. It's unclear exactly how it got here, but there are theories that it was either intentional as a food source for waterfowl, or it escaped from a water garden. Around 1884, it was introduced into Collins Lake near Scotia, New York, and by the early 1900s, water chestnut was well established in the Hudson River. It was discovered in Keuka Lake in the 1950s and is now found in over 43 counties in New York. Water chestnut, also called water caltrip, originally comes from Europe, Africa, and Asia. It should be noted that there are two plants from Asia that are referred to as water chestnuts. They're completely different plants from different families. The Chinese water chestnut is a grass-like sedge grown for its edible corms or bulbal tubers. This type of water chestnut is what you typically find in the supermarket or in Asian cuisine. The European water chestnut has been used for food and medicine in Asia, but lacking the biological insect control it would have in its native habitat, it reproduced rapidly in the U.S. and was quickly labeled an invasive species. These are the water chestnuts we'll be focusing on in this podcast. The European water chestnut is a rooted aquatic herb that grows from seed and dies at the end of the season each year. The seeds produce 10 to 15 stems that can be 6 to 15 feet long. There are very fine roots that anchor the plant in the mud at the bottom of freshwater streams, rivers, and lakes. The leaves of the plant form a rosette that floats at the surface of the water. The individual leaves are triangular, glossy green, and have sawtooth margins. They also have prominent veins and short, stiff hairs on the bottom, and are 3/4 to 1.5 inches long. The piece connecting the leaf to the stem, called the petiole, is inflated in the water chestnut, adding buoyancy, and it can be 2 to 8 feet long. There are also submerged feather-like leaves along the stem that alternate to form whorls around it. When the plant flowers, a single small white flower sprouts from the center of the leaf rosette. Each of the rosettes can produce up to 20 nut-like fruits. They start to produce in July, and the fruit takes a month to ripen. Each is about 1 inch to 1.5 inches wide and have 4 very sharp spines. When mature, most nuts fall straight down to the bottom of the water body and overwinter there, though they can remain viable in sediment for 12 years. Some seeds move downstream due to water currents, and some get tangled in the feathers of waterfowl and are moved farther. If they are deposited near shore, they can lead to nasty injuries if stepped on. The plant can also spread if the rosette detaches from the stem and floats to a new area, or if the rosettes or fruits get caught by watercrafts, boat trailers, or fishing equipment. Because of the way these plants grow, reaching all the way from the bottom of the lake to float their leaves at the surface, they form dense mats of vegetation. It's hard and dangerous to try boating through these mats, and even more so for swimming. They can also severely limit sunlight that reaches the native aquatic plants, and that reduces or eliminates the growth of these more nutritious food sources. Water chestnuts can also outcompete both submerged and emergent native vegetation. When the water chestnut dies, it begins to decompose. The bacteria involved in decomposition takes oxygen out of the water. Dissolved oxygen is put into the water by aquatic plants during photosynthesis. So when the water chestnuts inhibit the growth of other plants and then die, not only does the amount of oxygen added to the water decrease, but the amount taken out increases. This creates areas of hypoxia, or low oxygen levels, which can kill fish and other animals. Because water chestnut is an annual plant, the most effective control techniques are done before the seeds form. It's possible to eliminate it entirely from an area if the infestation is small enough and detected early. Medium infestations can be suppressed and contained if the managing body is committed to long-term monitoring, introducing prevention methods, and strategic removal. If using manual removal techniques, rosettes should be pulled from mid-June to early July when they first appear and before the seeds develop. Pulling sprouts throughout the growing season can also help deplete the seed bank. It's best to start at the edge of the infestation and work your way into the center, removing as much of the plant as possible. Mechanical and chemical management is also possible, but an aquatic plant survey should be conducted to assess the impact on native and protected species. Whatever the method of removal, the plant should be transported away from any water sources to reduce the risk of spread, and then composted. If you want to volunteer to help at a harvest event or other invasive control opportunity, contact your local Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management. The Finger Lakes PRISM has several programs throughout the area. Check them out at fingerlakesinvasives.org. In the meantime, there are other ways you can help out. Make sure to clean, drain, and dry your watercraft and other equipment thoroughly before moving to another recreation site. Remove and dispose of all debris and bait, and drain any compartment that can hold water. If a decontamination station is available, disinfect the compartments with hot water for at least 30 seconds. It's also recommended that all equipment spend 5 to 7 days drying in warm conditions before using it in another water body. Preventing the spread of water chestnuts and detecting infestations early is the best way to reduce the ecological impacts and reduce the financial cost of removal. As always, if you spot this invasive or any others we've discussed, please report it through IMAP Invasives. And with that, we've reached the end of this week's episode of Invasive Species Friday. Next Friday, we'll be back with a brittle aquatic plant. Until then, we at the Yates CCE thank you for tuning in and supporting our fight against invasive species in Yates County.